Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Carol Adams, and I'm Coordinator of Research and Campaigns for the British Columbia Government and Service Employees Union.
Thank you very much. James Clancy talked about it this morning. There's an attack going on public service and public servants. How is that manifesting itself in British Columbia?
Well, probably much like elsewhere in the rest of Canada, we have a government that is hell-bent on privatizing public services, getting out of the business of providing important, vital public services to British Columbians, handing it over to the private sector, or eliminating those services altogether.
And how is that playing out for ordinary people?
For ordinary people, it means in the communities they're seeing a severe loss and cutback in the kinds of things that they need every day in their lives. Things like access to care for seniors, to services for people with developmental disabilities, for child care for working families, to environmental protection and stewardship of our forests. I mean, it's just really across the board cuts that have impacted communities and working families and ordinary people.
And how many of your members have lost work because of it?
Well, out of 65,000 members, the hardest hit have been in direct government, where the government has laid off staff, and particularly in the Ministry of Forests. Those workers work in enforcement and compliance and ensure that there's proper stewardship of our forests. And those jobs have been lost, and we're deeply concerned about what the impact will be on the future of our forests.
How are you fighting these cuts? What are you doing to sensitize people to the effects of the cuts on public service?
Well, we are talking to our own members, first of all, to raise public awareness amongst our own membership and with their families, and encouraging them to go out and speak in their communities about what the impact is of the loss of public services in their community. At the same time, the government has cut funding for public services. The government has also downloaded responsibility to other levels of government and to nonprofit organizations where we also have members who work. And so you're seeing across the board suffering by contracted agencies, by service providers, by all kinds of community groups who are just reeling from the impact of these cuts.
Can you point to some examples, some specific examples?
Well, currently the government has cut funding, $22 million in funding to community living services, and these are services to people who have developmental disabilities. And in response, the contracted agencies are having to close group homes, forcing individuals to find alternate, less expensive forms of care, and not necessarily within their best interest or what they choose in terms of their type of care.
And of course, these are some of the most vulnerable people in society, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that this government seems to be targeting the most vulnerable people in our society, including seniors, people with developmental disabilities, the poor, the homeless, the disadvantaged, people with children, working families, and working people.
And how do you fight that? What's going on the ground?
Well, we're going community by community, member to member, member to neighbor, talking to our friends, our family members, talking to other union members, raising public awareness in every way that we can to try and draw attention to what the impact of this government's initiatives are, and to press government to stop these cuts, to restore funding for vital public services. They're on the wrong track, and we need the public we need public outcry over the. We need the public to fight back against what this government is doing, and hopefully make it a political agenda for the next election.
Of course, they've just received a renewed mandate fairly recently. You had an election this year, right?
We had an election last year, and in a short period of time of a year, the governing party, the Campbell Liberals, have seen themselves plummet in the polls. We think that people are really angry. They feel they've been betrayed by this government. They see the impact of really dangerous government actions in their own communities because of the cutbacks in funding, because of the elimination of vital programs and public services.
I was just talking to Tom Mann from New Brunswick about the kind of coalition that they put together out of citizen outrage about the planned sale of the NB Power. Are you putting together those kinds of coalitions in BC?
Very much. We work in coalition with individuals, with patients, with seniors, with advocates, with local government officials, with employers, who are all deeply concerned about what the impact the government's cutbacks are having on vital services to ordinary people.